Welcome once again to my office. Welcome to another word of the week, our weekly wow. Interesting word this week, the word alone. Actually, if I were using a phrase of the week, I would have titled this Alone, but in God's Presence. I want to share with you an experience from my mission background. It had been a long day of teaching and preaching, Sunday morning Bible class, worship, then lunch shared at the church building, teaching an afternoon seminar, evening worship, and then an invitation to eat at the home of one of the elderly couples in the church. The lodging in Montevideo that visit had been really quite good. The prophet's quarters at the church building included a comfortable bed, a small refrigerator, and a microwave. On other visits, I stayed in the homes of the members. The Sunday night meal conversation extended further and further into the evening, into the night. It was delightful, pleasant experience. A little before midnight, we were finally winding down. There were two options. I could ask my host to get out his car and take me back to the church building. It was about a kilometer, about three-fourths of a mile. Or I could walk those 8 to 10 blocks. I hesitated to ask my elderly host to go to the trouble to get his car out and take me back. And they assured me that it was safe to walk the streets of Montevideo at midnight. I walked near the curb, first on the sidewalk and then in the darker places on the street. There was no traffic. In fact, the streets I was walking, I saw no one. I didn't see a car in all of the walk back to the church building. I saw not one person in those 8 or 10 blocks that I walked. But I was very much aware of being alone. This was pre-cell phone days. I didn't really have any way to contact anyone if there had been a problem. Aware of being alone, and yet uniquely aware of not being alone. I could not tell that anyone was around. I was certain, however, that God was present. I still remember that feeling. I still remember some of the emotion of that moment. I remember the experience as though it had happened recently. I, in fact, cannot think of many times in my life when I was more acutely aware of being alone and being with God at the same time. How often is God present when we do not sense his presence, don't think about it, not even trying to be aware of it? The problem of modern life, we're never alone. We're constantly hooked up, constantly connected, or at least we can be. A mission deacon forwarded me an email, then called me with a question about a work in Colombia. The deacon lives about 100 miles from my home in Tulsa. I didn't know the answer to his question. We hung up with my promise that I would call him back in 10 or 15 minutes with an answer. I immediately called a contact, a brother in Colombia, on WhatsApp, 2,579 miles away. Within minutes, I had an answer. I called the deacon back, gave the answer. When are we genuinely alone? When are we not connected? Do you ever leave your phone at home on purpose? Do you ever disconnect on purpose? We are blessed, and yet at the same time, we are so distracted. Alone, but not alone. This week, here's the challenge. Seek to find a little alone time. Genuinely alone, but with God present. Time for praying, time for expecting that God will show up if we give him entree, if we give him an opportunity. Our world doesn't give us many opportunities to, if I might quote Psalm 46, verse 10, to be still and to know that God is God. So our word this week is something that can guide us in this life, but also presents a challenge. Find a time to be alone with God in the next few days. Remember that God loves you. I love you. That's the way it's going to be. I trust that you find these thoughts helpful. Look forward to be with you again next week for another Word of the Week, our weekly wow. Until then, God bless.